King Edward, Part 7, Chapter 7, Dragon. So you saw a demon, and killed a rat with Tooth? That's a fine ebony dagger, Tooth is. They're rare, so you can take a real good care of it, Myth said. I can't tell you about the blade except it came from Merlin's father. It's the one his brother sent him to repair just before he ran away. Would you like to hear about how they got the dragon's tooth that Matt's carved the hilt from? Edward nodded, caressing the curved hilt with its lightly carved intertwined roses, thorns, and leaves. It was well after supper, and everyone but him and Myth had left the fire for one reason or another. Aliera and Morlin had gone for a walk hand in hand, Aliera holding Morlin's newly healed left hand in both of hers. They had laughed and shaken their heads when he had offered to come along. "Not tonight," Aliera had said. "Go to sleep soon. We'll be leaving before dawn." Willow had gone to visit a high elf friend beach. Saas, Mats, and the Khajiit woman Silk had also gone off, together laughing. They'd invited Myth to come along, but Myth had declined. Khajiits. They're all turning into a bunch of shameless Khajiits, Myth said. The short dark elf sat close to the glowing embers, knees to chest. His hair and eyes glowed in the dim light. "If you're going to pair, you should pair, not turn it into a tourney. They'll be selling tickets next, but to each his own. Khajiits think we're weird because we like eating as a group. Silk says it puts her right off her food at first, listening to everybody chew. Well, having a bunch of watchers puts me off. I suppose you're too young for this kind of talk." Edward shrugged. It was a beautiful night, crispy cool, no moon, but the stars were very large and bright. Anyway, it was just a few months after Mats had joined up with us. We were up in Skyrim, traveling from town to town. Just 3 kids seeing the country a bit, picking up odd jobs where we could. Morlin entered tournaments if we heard about them, but he wasn't winning that much, just about enough to cover healing him up afterwards. You can get beat up pretty bad fighting Skyrim style. That's without shielding spells or any other spells for that matter. No magic allowed, even if it isn't to death. And he drew a few types that didn't mind seeing a little dark elf blood spilled in the sand. Or a lot. And the crowds were against him at first. It can get pretty lonely in the arena, especially if you're beating the hometown favorite. It's even worse if he's beating you. Mats and me'd be the only ones for him, and sometimes we didn't dare cheer too loud. They'd look real funny at Nord, boy cheering a dark elf back then. Of course, Mats was so big, not many wanted to start anything with him. That was a long time ago. Morlin's the favorite now if things get tough. Of course, the crowds will cheer for a good match, but hardly anyone really wants to see him lose now. They like seeing the best, even if it comes wrapped in a dark elf hide. And when he walks into an arena, you know you're seeing the best. Not what they like seeing in the North that's better. And Mats may get here soon. He doesn't fight his best against Morlin, though. Maybe he doesn't want to. Or maybe Morlin just knows him too well. Oh well, you want to hear about the dragon. So Morlin was gambling with this Nord in a tavern one night, trying to pick up a little easy gold. The pot's pretty big, and the man can't match his bet. So he says he'll put this map on the pile and tap Morlin. Says it's a map to the hiding place of the best blade ever made. Says there's a spell on it that if you hit your opponent, you get as much heal as he gets hurt. That some mage hit it before he died, so there's only someone worthy can get to it. "And you think I look worthy?" Morlin says, grinning. "We were young and dumb, but not that dumb." The Nord grins back and says, "I saw you fighting Falkreath, kid. You look like you'd take a chance." "Why not? The story alone is worth the gold. You ought to be a bard." So anyway, Morlin wins the pot and tosses the man enough back to keep his throat wet all evening. Just for laughs, we look at the map. It showed the Dragon's Teeth Mountains down in Hammerfell. Real wild country. There's an X in writing saying Fang Lair. Matt gets excited and says he's heard of the place, but he never just known where it was. "And you still don't," I say. "Any fool can draw a map, just as any fool can look at one. I don't do as much myself." Matt says Fanglair's an old dwarf mine, but there's supposed to be a dragon there now, and the dwarfs are gone. Wolin looks real interested at the mention of a mine and asks what they mine there. Matt said mithril and gold. Wolin says, The mithril had him interested. We couldn't really afford good weapons, and mithril's scarce, but it's light to carry for its worth, and easy to mine, and work with if you know how, and he did. He didn't believe in magic or the blade or the dragon, but he thought the mine might be real. Mining's in his blood, as it is in all of the Rothan, the real kin of Ebonheart. It took us a couple months to get there. We couldn't afford horses. We never would have found it without the map. It's a tricky country full of canyons and hidden valleys. We sure never expected that when we got there. You could see the towers from the canyon mouth, way back in there. Dark elves live right in caverns if they mine, but the dwarves had built a hall over the top of their mines. It's a pretty thing on the outside, narrow towers and arched bridges between them. Delicate looking. You wouldn't expect work like that from dwarves. Merged right into the rocks, too. There was a big stone dragon mounted above the gate. "There's your dragon, Mats," I said. The inside wasn't much to look at, just a rock wall. The doorway was enormous, but the doors were gone. There was a balcony running right around a big open pit, probably the start of the mine, turned into a hall, and right in the middle was more treasure than you can imagine, piled up almost like a haystack that had been flattened out. And what had been flattened it was a gold dragon curled right over it. We didn't even see him at first, because he blended with the rest of the gold. We just froze in place. We hadn't seen a sign of live dragon outside. The place smelled of brimstone, but most mines do. And there that dragon was, just lying there, and it's going to be 2 miles to any kind of shelter. "I told you there was a dragon," Mats whispers. "Shh," Moreland says. "Look what's in front of his nose." I've been busy looking at his nose, believe you me, but there was a sword lying right there, naked sure enough, and the blade was dark metal that looked just like a dagger. "You two start back," Moreland said. "I'm going to try for that blade anyway. If that's not enemy, I'm a wood elf. Maybe the dragon's dead or asleep for the winter. Or maybe it's not alive at all, just something the dwarves made to guard their treasure, like the scarecrows the Nord farmers put in their grain fields. At worst, I'll distract him long enough for you to get clear." I don't mind to take him up on it, but Matt just shook his head, and I kinda ashamed to go back alone. "Let's all just clear out," I said. That thing looked real enough to scare me away. But Moreland cast invisibility and heads on down the stair, not making a sound that even I could hear. I could see Mats hated letting him go down alone, but Mats couldn't sneak past a blind, deaf beggar in a fish market. So we strung our bows and figured we could try to get off a couple shots and maybe get lucky and take out the eyes if the dragon woke up and went for Moreland. Mats and I move around to where we can get onto a tower stair fast if we have to, figuring the dragon can't get in there. Then we scrunch down and peer between the railings. Not that there is anything to see except the dragon lying there, which really is a lot to see at that. Then those dragon eyes popped open and my heart gave one big jump and then seemed to quiet it entirely. "Ah, dinner comes to me today," the dragon says. "Take a good look at my hoard, dark elf. You will not steal it or even view it long, but your bones will keep it company forever." "I don't want your hoard, dragon, just the sword you guard. I'll trade you mine for it. Mine's bigger." I couldn't see Moreland, but his voice was coming from right near where the sword was, which was practically in the dragon's mouth. "I get a meal on both swords. Why should I settle for just you and your poor sword?" "Let me pass. I'll get you more gold from below." "I have gold enough," the dragon yawned, and I thought he was going to swallow Moreland right then, but he turned his head away from us too. Mats was looking to get a shot, but it was really dark in there for Nord eyes, and he was scared of hitting Moreland, since he couldn't locate him well by sound. Of course, Moreland's too smart to get between us and the dragon, but Mats wasn't smart enough to think that far along. Slavery dulls the wits in some ways. Mats says that he hadn't been free very long. I could see well enough, and I could tell by sound exactly where Moreland was, but the shot was clean out of my range. The dragon goes on. "But there is something you can do for me, elf, and prolong your life a few more minutes." "A few more minutes sounds pretty good just now, dragon. What would you ask of me?" Moreland's voice sounded as calm and easy as if he was asking if there would be rain tomorrow. He can keep his head in a tight spot, I'll give him that. I have a toothache. It's far too back for me to reach with my claws. Can't see it, Delph? The dragon gaped his jaws to bare his teeth. Merlin's invisibility spell wore off about then, and I could see him standing there, staring up into that cavern of a mouth. Lower your head a bit so I can get a good look. He puts out his hands and pulls the upper lip aside, cool as you please, and examines the inner gum carefully. Damnedest thing I ever saw. It's abscessed. Thy gum wants lancing, and the tooth should come out. I can lance if you would trust me in there, with a sword. And why should I trust you, dark elf? I hear no good of your kind. You must be spending too much time with Nords, then. I wouldn't be able to kill you if you killed me. Why should I even try? Listen, I have some friends up above. Suppose they hunt you up a nice fat deer. I'll lance your gum, and you can let me go and eat the deer. Else you can just eat me now, toothache and all. So what makes you think your friends will return once they're away? They're not very smart. I think for them. They'd be lost without me. Good hunting, guys. If they can't find a deer, is there anything else you'd like? Pig, maybe? A few rabbits? Nuts? Berries? Hurry up, will you? But we had some hand signals, and his hand said to get out of there and stay out. I'd have been glad to. I mean, I'm fond of Merlin, but I didn't see my dying alongside would bring him any comfort. I'd have been glad to see him clear, if it was just me on that menu, and I figured he felt the same way. That thick-skulled Nord wouldn't listen to me. Said if dying beside him was all we could do, then that's what we'd do. Nord nonsense. Sounds good in song, though. So we both took a couple hours getting a deer and headed back with it. Figured Merlin was filling the dragon's belly by now, and the dragon would be happy to add a deer, another dark elf, and a Nord to round out his day's rations. But Merlin was still sitting there chatting with the dragon. He didn't look all that pleased to see us either. Told us to leave the deer and go on, and he'd lance the abscess once we were away. But Matt said he'd been thinking. Oh, brother, I thought. Matt doesn't think too often, and that's a good thing, really. He decided he can get a chain around the bad tooth fastened at the end of the door, and the dragon can give it a good yank himself. The dragon likes the idea, so Merlin lances the abscess to take the swelling down to where the dragon can gulp the deer with some effort. Then they rig up a chain and get that tooth out. Made a hell of a mess, that. Blood and pus everywhere. And Merlin's got us casting heal spells on this dragon to stop the bleeding and close up the wound. Good, very good. All right, Merlin, you've proven yourself. Take the sword and go. Merlin looks at him. You mean this was some kind of test? He says. How long have you had that toothache? Long indeed, as you measure time, mortal. Yet not very long at all for dragon kind. Hear my story, then. A scraggly young mage came along, hoping to steal my gold. I caught him at it. We had increasingly harsh words, and he attempted a spell aimed at me. His pitiful spell affected me little, and I killed him. But, The dragon looked away briefly, then resumed his tale. The little runt apparently cast a homemade curse spell upon himself. And when I crunched him, the dragon scowled fiercely, remembering, then continued. Anyway, the ache only came on bad when someone came along to try for the sword. The sharpest pain went away when I ate the intruder. But I usually didn't, though I've singed a few in self-defense. Wafted a bit of fire, and most of them fled. Deer are plentiful. There is something unpleasant about eating someone you've talked to. That greasy mage gave me indigestion for days. Cramps and runny bowels and too much gas, even for a dragon. So that toothache never did completely go away. And the people who've come along haven't been very pleasant either. All in all, one of the most unpleasant stretches of my life. I couldn't stay away from the vicinity of the sword for very long, of course. Part of the curse. We could stay on a while if you'd like. We're good company. I'm Merlin. My red-headed friend is Myth, and the big guy is Mats. I still like to look for the mithril below, and I've never had a dragon friend before. I might like that. You have good friends, even though you have said that you must do the thinking for them. I think that they could do some thinking on their own. It would appear that they have decided that you are a worthwhile fellow. The dragon hesitated for a second, then actually managed to look sigh. You can call me Akatosh. So we stayed for a couple weeks, hunted with the dragon. Now that's an experience. Searched the mines, didn't find much down there, but the dragon gave us the jewels from his hoard. Said he only needed the metal. They absorb it into their scales when they lie on it. So we did pretty well out of it after all. Merlin tried to give Mats the sword, claimed that he'd have sure tried to kill that dragon if we hadn't come back, and would have been toasted. But Mats wouldn't take it, so the dragon gave it to Morland so that it was clearly who was supposed to have it. Mats took the tooth, but he made the hilt you've got now and gave Morland that too. Told me he'd never had anything worth giving before and made him feel good. He's real pleased Morland chose to give it to you. I think Matt shouldn't have got the sword, Edward said. He didn't try to steal anything. It was really brave of him to come back, even when he didn't think he'd do any good. Only tried to steal, got caught, and then just tried to talk his way out of it. You could have all been killed because of him. That's what Morland said. Oh well, Mats likes the big axe of his better than a blade anyway. Edward sighed. I wish I were brave like Mats. Guess I'm more like you. Aye, Morland's voice sounded behind him, startling the boy. Taut-tongued like Myth. No matter, I'll be well pleased if you're as brave as Myth. And if once I'm gone they say no more of me than he did what he had to do, my spirit will be at peace.